The third one is the stage of economic development. तो इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट के जिस स्टेज पे है एक कंट्री में जितना इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट हुआ है वो डिटरमाइन करता है कि कैसा इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड होगा या नहीं, या कैसा इंटरनेशनल ट्रेड होगा, राइट। तो अब इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट को हम कैसे जज करते हैं? So, when we refer to certain countries as developed or developing or underdeveloped, what we basically look at is the development of each particular sector. जैसे अगर एक एरिया में, अगर एक कंट्री में इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन हुआ है, or so we call that an industrially developed country, which means, so now there's industrialization, now there's urbanization, and now this means that there's no more dependency on agriculture. Similarly, when a country has not gone through the phase of industrialization, it means कि वो अभी भी प्राइमरी एक्टिविटीज पे ज्यादा डिपेंड करता है, वो अभी भी एग्रीकल्चर को अपना सोर्स ऑफ इनकम बना के चलता है, एंड सो द प्राइमरी सोर्स ऑफ इनकम comes from land. So there's a higher dependency on land rather than the use of technology or the use of skills and labor. So this is how we judge whether or not a country is in what stage of development an economy is, right? So the stage of economic development determines the nature of items traded. मतलब क्या, अगर एक country agriculturally बहुत strong है, it's an agro economy, तो इसका मतलब वो जो है agricultural products पे ज़्यादा trade करेगा. Similarly, if a country is industrially very developed and it has a very strong industrial base, तो वो country manufactured goods को ज़्यादा it will trade more in manufactured goods, in finished products. So this is how, so because a particular country is at a particular stage of economic development, that is why it sells a particular a product of a particular nature. मतलब अगर हम agricultural goods को ज़्यादा ट्रेड कर रहे हैं, so that means I have an economy which is basically strong in agriculture. So that's what it sees कि कैसा उसका इकोनॉमी है, कैसा उसका इकोनॉमिक डेवलपमेंट है, वो डिटरमाइन करता है कि कैसे तरह के प्रोडक्ट्स जो है वो ट्रेड होंगे. So that's economic development determining the nature of goods and services that are traded by a particular country. The next is the extent of foreign investment. Foreign investment भी international trade को affect करता है. How? Because a country needs capital, it needs investment, right? So if a country is not rich enough to invest on capital, then there will be no production activities, there will be no specialization, and that directly implies that there will be not much international trade from that country. So when we have, that is why every country tries to encourage what we call FDI or foreign direct investment. So अगर foreign से investment हो रहा है, अगर let's say for an example of foreign investment, अगर कोई foreign कंपनी है जो हमारे देश में एक इंडस्ट्री या एक फैक्ट्री सेटअप करना चाहती है, so it will invest in our country, it will purchase the land for it, it will acquire the permission to set up a factory in that area. Once it sets up a factory in that area, it will hire labor from the nearby areas, which means what? Which means people of our country, people of the local area are getting more employment. So this gives money in the hands of those people. Now they are employed, now they are having jobs, and now they are earning money. Also, now this country also needs a lot of raw materials, which it will definitely not bother to transport from the home country. So now it will purchase these raw materials also from the local areas as nearby as possible, from as close as possible, because it needs to, because the firm or the factory needs to reduce its transportation costs. So it will acquire raw materials and labor all from the local areas, and this will lead to investment, this will lead to generation of income in our domestic country, in the local area, right? So that is why foreign investment is important. Capital is required for development of mining, oil drilling, lumbering, heavy engineering and plantation agriculture. तो इन चीजों के लिए जो है कैपिटल बहुत जरूरी है. We cannot, a country cannot reach a certain stage of economic development or industrial development without some form of investment, without some capital. And ये capital जो है, so if we're getting foreign investment, if a country is investing in all these things, what it does is, since it's investing in all these things of another country, of a foreign country, so now so there's a trend of developed countries having done foreign investments for all these reasons in a country which is not so developed, and by doing that the developed country actually gets access to the markets of the foreign country जहाँ पे उन्होंने investment किया है. अगर चाइना ने हमारे कंट्री में, इंडिया में इन्वेस्टमेंट किया है, राइट, अगर हमारे कंट्री में उसने फैक्ट्री सेटअप किया, whatever forms of investment it has done, so it's gaining access to our markets, and it will now be able to import certain raw materials that it needs from our country, and it will gain access to our markets, and it will be able to sell its own finished products in our markets. So this is by this entire cycle actually increases the volume of international trade. एक फॉरेन कंट्री ने हमारे देश में इन्वेस्टमेंट किया है, अब हमारे पास भी कैपिटल है, तो हम प्रोडक्शन कर सकते हैं, हम उन चीज जो चीज हम प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं हम उन्हें इंटरनेशनली बेच सकते हैं, राइट. एंड जब किसी ने हमारे कंट्री में इन्वेस्टमेंट किया है, तब उस कंट्री को हमारे मार्केट्स में एक्सेस मिल गया है, अब वो हमसे रॉ मटेरियल्स ले सकता है, अब वो अपने फिनिश प्रोडक्ट्स को हमारी कंट्री में सेल कर सकता है. सो ये जो पूरा फिनोमिनन है, ये जो पूरा प्रोसीजर है, ये क्या कर रहे हैं बेसिकली, इन वन वे और द अदर हम ट्रेड कर रहे हैं इंटरनेशनली इन व्हाटएवर फॉर्म, इन व्हाटएवर गुड्स वी आर ट्रेडिंग. But this trade is international because there is the involvement of a foreign country. So this also, so that is why the extent of foreign investment is important when we're discussing how much international trade is happening of a country. Also, the fifth factor is transport. So transport क्यों important है? If we look at olden times, what we see is, when we see the traditional patterns of trade, the movement of trade or direction of trade, something that we're going to study later on in this segment. So what happened was, trade, because we didn't have a lot of developed forms of transportation earlier, so the level of trade was also very restricted. We did not have very widespread patterns of trade, right? तो चीजें जो है वो प्रोड्यूस होती थी और फिर वो लोकल मार्केट्स में ही बेची जाती थी. There was not much spread out in trade patterns. But also one thing to notice here is when a lot of high value items were being traded, like for example silk that was traded by China via the Silk Route, something that we've discussed in the chapter Transportation and Communication. So जो सिल्क था, या जेम्स की बात करें, ज्वेलरी की बात करें, जो बहुत ही हाई वैल्यू चीजें थी, जो जिनके लोग बहुत शौकीन थे, जो these were basically not necessary items, these were not things that you would need, but these were high value items which people like to acquire, right? So these things got traded over large distances because in certain particular areas there were very, very high demands of these people, or by certain particular rich powerful people there were demands of these things, and that is why these high value things got traded over long distances. But then when it comes to basic consumer products, trade was very, very restricted to local markets. But what happened was, with the expansion of rail, ocean and air transport, better means of preservation and refrigeration, there was a spatial expansion of trade. क्योंकि हमने ट्रांसपोर्ट को जो है डेवलप किया है, क्योंकि हमने we have developed numerous forms of transportation. Since we have expanded the railway network, and we have developed forms of ocean and air transport, things which were not very developed earlier. That is why. And also we have played around with technology, and we have now we have better means of preservation and refrigeration. This led to a spatial expansion of trade. And when we say spatial expansion, what we mean is spatially trade has expanded. Now trade is more widespread. So this is just a geographical terminology of saying कि trade जो है अब वो बहुत ज़्यादा widespread हो गया है. Trade has become more international. Earlier trade was more restricted, and now it has become more widespread. So because of the development of transportation, we have a spatial expansion of trade. So these are the factors which form the basis for international trade. These are the reasons why we continue to have, or why we have international trade at the first place, and why we continue to have international trade, and what supports it, and why we need it. So this talks about all of those things.